A month has passed since the gathered executives had met. Today, I was also in the control room monitoring the movements of the Empire. Since this was the staging ground for all of our intelligence, Benimaru and I could practically say we moved in here. We really only left to our homes at night. If left unattended, this would likely turn into a secret base for Vildor and Rammers. It was a place I had been building for a long time, and had put to good use. Benimaru also cleaned up after himself, so I think he had all but actually returned to his room. I don't even need to worry about such things, but with the battle coming up, it would be bad if the great general fell. The control room was usually manned by staff. When we were at war we would work round the clock shifts, taking 3 shifts. This was to prevent everyone from sticking their heads up too hard. It is important to manage your own health, and this was the only thing that needed to be thoroughly implemented. Still, the one person I didn't even need to worry about with that kind of thing was our ally, Bildor-kun. And then there was Rammers. Those two would rest and relax without me needing to say anything. Rather, it should be said that they would also go AWOL. At first they were excited that the war was about to start, but when it turned out that there was no movement after a month, they looked as if they were completely tired of everything. By now they had returned to their research and were saying capricious things, telling us to just wait for something to happen before notifying them. It's just as well. If they were here they would only cause trouble, so I decided to just go along with them. So that's the situation. The only group of people here at the moment were me, Benimaru, and Saoi. Then, there were my secretaries, Xian and Diablo. I also can't forget the other number 1, Geld, who was there too. However, it kept some other projects at a standstill, which made me sad. I'd really like to get the war over with before Miss Free gets mad. But in the end, it's up to the opponent to make the first move. In this war, the side that attacks first takes the reins. If the other side doesn't fight, even if they want to fight with the other side, they can't fight. It was originally thought that the Imperial Magic Tank Force would attack in almost 20 days or so, but the invasion turned out to be slower than expected. It should be said that they were deliberately slowing down and making a deliberate show of their majesty when they entered. I was always watching them with my own Argus, but some of them haven't even seen a magic tank, so they look like evil demons. Monsters would also fear those huge and vicious opponents. Even the sub-A level monsters that lived in the forest fled from their marching range because they were afraid of the Imperial Army. As for where the Imperial Army was currently, they had just crossed the border. Forced entry into our borders, a matter that was totally incompatible with international law as laid down by the Western Council, but the enemy empire did not take rules seriously. Nowadays, the most important thing was how to apply them and make them strategically valuable. We could actually use this as a reason for us to launch a surprise attack, but I still felt that we should at least consult with each other. It also seemed likely that the Imperial side would persuade us to surrender and hold off on attacking for the time being until that moment comes. I think the other side is naive, but we're not ready for that either. It should be a showdown afterwards anyway, so there's no need for us to sneak around. In this way, Benimaru also expressed his approval with a leisurely attitude. I was relieved that preparations for war against the Empire could indeed be made. Immediately following, the days that we had been waiting were finally coming to an end. The Imperial side had stopped and started to lay out their formations. The Imperial Army was not stupid either. It seems that they had no intention of fighting us squarely from the beginning. Other than the magic tank units, the other infantry squads were marching towards the forest one after another. The total number was about 70% of the entire strength of the Empire, up to 700,000. Although we already knew this, I would review once more. Looks like this is their main force. Should be. While using the magic tank force as a front, the real purpose is actually to suppress the Dwarven Legion, right? So it seems. Is it to avoid being pinned from behind in an attack on our country? It is clear that such a large army is well prepared, but they are still very careful in their actions. The reason why the magic tank forces seemed to be moving so slowly was really not just to demonstrate their majesty. There was another, more important purpose, and until their main forces, the infantry, was assembled, they seemed to want to attract our attention by using the magic tank force. It's just that the other side's attempts have already reached us. With intelligence, we can accumulate so many advantages. While saying that, Benimaru smiled wryly. Kufufufufu. It's true, Lord Rimuru. Everything is under your control, that's how it is. Diablo came over to us and was about to do that whole Lord Rimuru is the best thing. I'd gotten used to it, so I just nodded and said I guess. With the right know-hows, it's actually easy to deal with Diablo. As for that group of Imperial infantry, we seem to underestimate each other's threatening nature a bit. It seems that all of them are quite skilled, and none of them could keep up with the others, and went to gather at a place 30 kilometers away from the capital Rimuru. They camped there, and set up command posts. Saoi said this in order to get more attention and to explain the current situation to us. Plus, there was Moss to bring us information with impeccable accuracy. I also used my Argus for reinforcement, and even the enemy's strength was visible. It's unnatural, isn't it, that we don't react when we're all close to each other's throats? No, not necessarily. Those guys believe that they are better than us and believe that their actions have gone completely unnoticed by us. They've underestimated us and must be preparing to act immediately after persuading us to surrender. Kufufufufu. I think so too. I would like to add to Mr. Benamer's comment that this 30 kilometers is a wonderful distance. If it is monitored by magic, the farther away the accuracy decreases. Combined with the magic used to unleash interference through Legion magic, that area would be completely turned into a safe zone. The other side should believe that they can do that. But the funny thing is, I think that's all those guys can do. It seems my worries are just unfounded. There must be some kind of trap behind this lack of action on our part. That was what the Imperial Army thought while pushing in this direction, so even now, the enemy thinks we must not be able to see through them. In that case, all that was left to worry about was how strong the enemy's army actually was. By the way, Sao, how strong are the enemy soldiers? Sao deliberately emphasized that the other party was extremely threatening. That should mean only the strong ones. Depending on his answer, it might be necessary to revisit the operational plan. From an average evaluation, any grade that translates into human terms is equivalent to a B grade. There is no shortage of people in the upper echelons who are above A, and those in the lower echelons who are not below C+. Even when compared to the knights of the Western countries, they seem to be very good. The opponent's fighting power was beyond imagination. In this world, however, it's more about quality than quantity when it comes to combat, and a B grade is pretty good, but sometimes an A grade person alone can be more dangerous. Well, this is true, but the power of the group as a whole still cannot be underestimated. And there are absolutely no casual drafters among them, all of them are professional soldiers. Yes. They are well trained and considered the quality of their weapons and defenses, coupled with their tactics, each of which seemed to surpass the order of the Western powers. Even with Benamer and his Black Flame Jail, it might still be difficult to penetrate those guys' magic defense. According to Sao, the enemy army unleashed Legion magic from time to time. The level of the standard can only be described as very high. The combined combat power of each team is equivalent to rank A. The Hobgoblins were the same way. Tacit troops are tricky. It's not just adding up everyone's strength, sometimes it even has a multiplier effect. If every 20 was equivalent to an A grade, that's 35,000 A grade opponents to deal with simply by calculation. Seriously, that is not to be underestimated. They are very dangerous opponents. But it should be fine. That's the reason for using the maze. Kufufufufu. Just let them spread out within the maze and easily break through before the enemy could fully muster their strength. Everything is as Lord Rimuru has predicted, that's how it is. Actually, it's not. But in the end, it was the right choice to launch an attack inside the labyrinth, but depending on the enemy's strength. Wait. Thinking about this side of the story made me realize something. No matter how strong the opponent comes at us, this meet and greet battle will come in handy. By coming to the maze, we are able to spread the other's war power, and keep our own war power concentrated. So the truth of the matter is that if they really want to go through the maze, they can only rely on a few elite challengers. I thought this to myself, not to be outdone by Master Raphael, the King of Wisdom. I'm glad to see them on our side. I couldn't help but murmur, and Benamer was quite sympathetic. It will prevent the town from suffering, and will also make it easier for the war to move in our favor. Standing in the position of commanding an army, the last thing I want is to make an enemy of her. It's only because Ramers isn't here now that I can compliment her from the bottom of my heart. If it was a compliment to her face, she'd get carried away for a while and show it off, which would be annoying. These things aside for now. We shouldn't have any problems on our side, but we don't know what's going on with Gopta and the others. There were several big screens in the control room, and my magic was shining through them. And of course there was a broadcast of the scene near the Dwarven Kingdom above. There were 2,000 magic tanks lined up neatly. The layout here was no exception, which translated into a distance of about 30 kilometers from the central metropolis of Dwargen, St. Doran. This unbiased location is what we had anticipated. What matters is the performance of the magic tank. Its muzzle is facing the front door, which I had visited several times. The Imperial developed magic-guided tank seems to be a step up in performance compared to the magic tanks I know of. Maybe the range of the magic tank is better than my native world military tank. At such a distance, there should be no way for the shells to hit. In the square just inside that gate there were people like Gopta and Gazel standing by. Gopta and Gazel led their respective legions in their mission. The occasional battle with the enemy was not frequent, and the people who stayed in the hotel town took refuge. We also went as planned and sent reinforcements to rendezvous with the Dwarven Kingdom. The two army chiefs, Gopta and Gazel, have entered the Dwarven Kingdom. Either way, it's a matter of fighting with each other, and the other side is not taking away our command. Gazel had already promised this, so I wasn't worried, and it looked like the military units of the Dwarven Kingdom had indeed kept their word. That should make it all right. Although there is still some unease about us joining forces with the Dwarven Army, but as long as we let Tempest attack and ask the Dwarven Army to take over the defensive duties thoroughly, there should be no problem. Confusion in the chain of command is a problem in military operations. In order for legions of different nationalities to join forces to fight, as they did this time, it must first be decided which side of the order will take precedence. If it was Benimaru, he could interfere forcibly by using his unique skill, Generalissimo. Even if he was in a difficult position to distinguish between the enemy and himself on the battlefield, as long as he had this skill, everyone else would not have to worry about their own people fighting amongst themselves. Adding in the Dwarven Legion in this case, there was the potential for chaos. That's why we came to the conclusion that it was more efficient to share the responsibility for offense and defense. Just to be on the safe side, maybe it's better to talk to Gazel again. That's true. Now that the Empire has been laid out, it won't be long before the war begins. It's almost time for us to get on the battlefield, so we'd better get in touch with King Gazel and make a final confirmation. It looks like Benimaru agreed with me. With that in mind, I hurriedly reached for the newly set contact device.